So it's always a pleasure coming out here and speaking. I'm Velvet. I'm part of, as you can see on here, I'm part of the BC Coalition of Experiential Communities and the West Coast Cooperative for Sex Industry Professionals on the bottom. Now I want to talk to you about the web address in the center there, which is Trade Secrets. And that's a guide that was put out and studied by individuals in the industry to answer some of those questions that everybody has and wants to know about how it is you do the work you do and what you need to know and how do you need to know about doing it. And if I can just get you to bear with me as well, because this is the first time I'm presenting this portion of it, as Susan Davis, who normally presents this, was unable to attend this evening because she's got her family in town and she's got them at the butcher shop where she handles a different kind of meat, if you get my drift. So anyway, she always likes to make it very clear to us. So we're going to start with this here. We're going to move into building choices for the future, because we are about making choices and allowing individuals to make choices for themselves. I was asked to come on board with these presentations as well as my activism, which is now taking a whole different turn, I think, for the better, which has now involved the National Working Group, now the Canadian Alliance for Sex Work Law Reform. And so what we're doing is we are moving across the country, lobbying the government and MPs so we can talk with them about what exactly is going on and give them the best information they can possibly get based on factual information, not falsified documents that they're working from. Some of the individuals who want to decriminalize or criminalize sex, and we want to decriminalize it. If you're all familiar with the Supreme Court challenge that took place and their decision that came down as of December 20th of this last year, actually, and they have until December 20th this year to make laws better or whatever they're going to do. We don't know yet because it's all up in the air. So we hope this is going to be something that's going to be positive. And once again, as I said before, it's all about choices and making the right choices and allowing people to make the right choices. So let's move into what this is all about. So as you can see here, we have a very strong voice. We are out there in the media, and here you'll see Susan here addressing the media. And what she was entrusted with was the task of actually being the liaison person when we had the pig farm case going forward. So to handle all those different things and different questions so that they weren't handling questions directly to the families, that's what Susan was entrusted with. It was a very daunting task for her to do. It was really hard to deal with because there were a lot of emotions that were raised during that time frame. So it was the first time that we really were actually putting a strong voice to the whole vision and the whole fight that's now currently going on so that we can, fight for the rights of sex workers and create a safer working environment. So there you see her working with the media. So WCCSIP is the West Coast Cooperative for Sex Industry Professionals. And when we talk about sex industry professionals, we talk about everybody involved with sex work. We're talking about sex shops, we're talking about phone sex, we're talking about frontline sex workers, whether you're indoor, outdoor, all allies as well. So, and as well as pornography, video, webcam, all those different things. So it's a group cooperative of individuals who are involved who want to have a voice, that want to fight for different things. So you can see that we're mobilizing, groups are mobilizing together to make their voices heard. And as you can see, you can write down the address here, you can go to the website and have a look if you're interested in doing so. The BC Coalition of Experiential Women, which is what BCCEW stands for as well. So here we have Susan at the Museum of Vancouver looking over items that were, I believe, included, I think they were included in the recent sex exhibit that took place at the Vancouver Museum. There were drawers that you could pull in and out and look at, and they were also delivered and given to the museum by individuals in the community and people who collected things that were old, from long, days gone past. current workers, current individuals around the city who collect, for example, vibrators and dildos, the earliest vibrators. That was really quite fun to go there and see all that stuff. So if any of you didn't have a chance to go out there and look at that, I would suggest you try to look at photos and archives and things like that, because it is really interesting the history of what sex work and things that are sexual in Vancouver was all about. It's quite fun, to be honest. And here we're looking at gowns and clothes and outfits that were there as well. And so these are all archived. They're all in the library. They're all documented. They're all things that were there. And some of these outfits that are in this collection were held by the madams that were first here in the city. We want to talk about that as well. That's also a very strong part of our history in regards to how Vancouver was founded, much like Seattle, where it was men coming in to settle, you know, and log and farm and do all these other different things. So they were coming by themselves, and there was no women here. And I want to point out as well that a lot of the infrastructure that Vancouver has today, as well as places like Seattle and things like that, came from the brothels. The Madams were putting money back into sewage, roads, plumbing, all these different kinds of things, as well as schools, housing, electricity, taxes, doing all these different things. So this is just, you know, one of the outfits that was worn by women of that time period. And moving right along here, in the early days, of course, with the brothels came arrests. And this is the early days of, for example, your arrest card, your mugshot, things like that, all written down on paper and kept very simple. They give a description as to where they were: jail to serve sentence, you know, women of ill repute, occupation, prostitute, age 21, dark brown hair, gray eyes, fleshless. And you'll see the numbers on them. Up in the corner there, the 443. More of them here. Sentenced to 18 months in jail, occupation, prostitute, arrested. And I just want to point out as well that these were things that remained on your record forever, much like things are today when it's documented. If something goes before the courts or you're arrested and it's on your file, it's on your record, it's there forever. So that's not something that some individuals want to have on their record. I mean, how do you say that? How do you, oh yeah, I was busted for prostitution, I can't get that off, I can't do this, I can't do that. So you can just see how they're doing it at age 32, convicted of stealing $650, charged with stealing $3,500, $33. So yeah, not a lot of money, but and you can see here as well, this one here, Nora Foster, I believe that's what it says, arrested May 8, 1907. And how they term it as well, they're dead. She was dead at that time, that business still in there, and it was still kept on file. Paid her fine and was let go. Another one here, this is actually a man. And I believe this is a man, isn't it? I can't tell. Me asking that question, right? So this, from my knowledge, this one here was actually working in a common body house, not actually a prostitute or a sex worker. And so anybody that was in collusion, cohesion, whatever you want to call it, whatever word you want to see, even just working for a third parties, as we're now calling different things of that nature. You know, people making and helping the business to operate, to make it work, they were also arrested as well. Same here. Nationally American resident, 69 DuPont Street, Vancouver, occupation prostitute, age 24. Even right down to the sallow complexion, slight build, arrested April 22nd, 1904, for stealing $175. Money well earned, I guess. Here we go on to the next one here. So you can see that these are all handwritten and, you know, different pictures and very different from the mugshots that you see today. These, you know, they're nondescript photos, they don't do anything. Like I said, online paper, 444. So obviously it was a thriving business back then. And now we move into stuff that's more relevant to Vancouver in our early days here. And I believe this is in the 1950s, the Cave Supper Club. At the time these were all taking place, there was really no involvement with the police. Everything was going good, everything was going great. They were working in places called supper clubs where basically that's exactly what they were. You would go in, you would get your entertainment, you could have dinner, you could have drinks off the street, you could enjoy yourself. There was no issue, there was no problem, there was nothing like that. And you can see very well dressed, very glamorous individuals looking really good and entertaining the clients. Right down to kitchens, full functioning kitchens, cooking food, cooking meals. And here we have a lounge here. This was supplied to us by the gentleman sitting off to the side there who was the actual fashion designer for this. So this was the interior of the supper club. You can see them well dressed, smoking, lovely environment, nice clean, very professional, well lit. I want to point that one out as well, well lit. And the entertainment, the girls drinking, dancing, dancers, providing entertainment of that nature. Very happy times, look like. As you see again here, floor show, all kinds of lovely different things. So it's a very different image as to what we're used to seeing in the media and through Hollywood and movies and stuff like that. And here we have the RCMP with children in a supper club. So supper club was, I guess, the new terminology for a brothel. But as you can see, there was no issue with the children there. And the RCMP, you got the Christmas tree in the background. This was at Christmas time. So everything seems to be working really quite well and quite lovely. And then we move into the prohibitionists, the abolitionists, all these different things. Sex workers were considered the axis of evil. Very different from what Bush was trying to, instill out there, isn't it? I love using his name, Bush. Bush. Anyway, so, and you're going to know that I'm a comedian as well, okay, for those who didn't come to the sex shop and have a little chat with me. I'm sure I can see a few faces out there too. And where's Red? Where's Red with her nice rosy cheeks that I always think was funny thing? His girlfriend's here with him too somewhere, isn't he? I see. The story is avoid venereal disease, and you got a tank in the background, and disease carriers, gonorrhea and syphilis, the axis of evil. It's hilarious, these kinds of things, and they suddenly start putting these out. Easy to get syphilis and gonorrhea, okay? And this is the only place you're really going to get it, right? Give me a break. I mean, how many of you go to clubs and do all these different things? I'm not going to go on. VD, the easy girlfriend spreads syphilis and gonorrhea, which unless properly treated, may result in blindness, insanity, paralysis, premature death. Wow, for them to sit and come up with this shit, it's beyond me. But anyway, and this one here, this is so great, the worst of the three. And here we have Hitler and we have the Japanese emperor. Listen, buddies, eh? Wow, okay. So I wonder how many she killed compared to the 6 million that Hitler did. The Japanese emperor did there. It'd be pretty interesting to find that out. I guess she must have been the worst of it. She was on the arm of both of them, right in the middle there. So here we are moving into the systematic removal of safe work environments. So because of all of this and all these different things, there was a movement that was put forward to have people removed from these working environments. The Penthouse, for example, the Filipponi brothers. The Penthouse was temporarily shut down. Now, we're going to go into some statistics in a short period here. They had nowhere else to go except to work on the streets. And prior to that, there was no murders, deaths, anything to speak of that nature, at least not documented at that time. So here you can see them all having fun and laughing and giggling and doing their thing. And we move into the next one here where we can see that when all this started to happen, there was nothing up until 1974. In 1975 to 79, we see a slight rise in numbers. And it's also that we want to point out as well is that during this time frame, not only was it the penthouse, but we were also dealing with hotels where people were being forced out on the street to work and ply their trade out on the street as well, out of safe environments. And as we went to 85, 89, the numbers started to sharply increase. This is around the time as well of the pig farm starting to happen, and people really still didn't sit up and take notice for quite some time. So if you read this one here, it was like bang crash, and I was on the ground. I looked up to see 5 guns pointed at my head, my husband also on the ground, and my son with a gun pointed at him. My friend thought, this is the guy who's going to kill me. This is the kind of thing that workers were seeing with the police coming crashing through their door. I just want to talk about this for a little bit and throw my own little slant in here too. Having sat on the sex work task force with the City of Vancouver for the past 2.5 years, I found it very interesting to listen to tactic. And when I talk about tactic, I talk about what the police were actually saying as their tactic and how it was okay to battering ram down doors, zap strap women in various states of undress on the floor to the point where they had put them into tears crying, nude, having their clients running free out the door, but the women were zap strapped to the floor and nude, and battering rams and the so-called rescue effort and people coming in there to try and get them out of there and having them charged and stuff like that. And I do love calling the counter-exploitation head at that time, which was formerly the Vice Squad, asking him, it's like, wow, so that's a tactic. That seems like something very third world country, does it not? That doesn't seem like a tactic to me to bash in the door and zap strap individuals with their hands behind their back and pretty much naked. Can you answer that? He didn't like that anyway, just needless to say, and kind of looked at me and just hurried out the door. So, things to think about, how the way things are perceived and approached and done and dealt with. So, out of all this stuff, out of all these situations that have taken place, we talk about cooperative. We talk about getting people to get together to do different things and to help and get the voices heard of the frontline workers, which happen to be the sex workers, and to hear their needs and to why they're all about what they're doing and what it is that they want to get, which happens to be safety. Safety in different areas, safety in their work area, safety in their home, safety on the streets, safety with the governments, the authorities that are dealing with them. That's how we came to forming cooperatives. And if we look at this picture here, we'll see Jabar Mahila Samyana Committee, which is out of India, and this is a whole district, basically a city that's been created and done where there's sex workers there, and I'm not privy to the exact numbers, Susan would know that, but I know it's in the hundreds of thousands. Okay, and they're all working together, they're all there, they have a voice, they are heard, they are working, there's no individuals. And that's just one example of a successful cooperative. We can see here as well that people are getting together. There's Susan there, off to the side right here. The smiles and papers and documents, trying to sign them, because what she was doing at this time was trying to get the first cooperative brothel in effect here. Took years to actually get to this point as well. Where it's gone nowhere, even though we were able to get this signed, because governments still don't want to listen, the authorities don't want to listen, and the police don't. So if we look here to our history as well, we've got Shanghai Alley, we've got the Western, I can't make that out there, up the top there. So these are just areas around Vancouver where prostitution was going on. This is moving into the downtown east side, which is now the downtown side. We have Gastown there too. Areas where sex work was taking place. now has been relegated. We have Carnegie Center right in the center there, so you can see what it's gone from looking like this building that is now the hub of the downtown east side in regards to the areas that everybody is all familiar with in terms of negativity and what your stigma is all about, or their stigma is all about, and what your preconceived notions are all about, which is basically cliched as far as I'm concerned. So here we have cooperatives as well, where people are getting together to do things, just to show that there's a lot more diversity out there when it comes to sex work. People just think it is what it is and stuff like that. But what I want to point out as well is like this photo here is just trying to show that there is, you know, gathering, inclusion. Everybody's together. Everybody's doing things together. They're working hard for different things. Everybody's supportive of each other and moving forward with common goals. Creating art, doing different things, education, lots of transferable skills when we talk about sex work, you know, the ability to advertise, manage your money, talk to clients, consult, counsel, all these different things. And of course we have the boys in blue. Just probably throw that in there. Look at how miserable they look. Oh my God. It's like, what's up, guys? Oh, sorry. Oh, it must be the haircut in the background. And this here's just a shot of the downtown east side as to what people are seeing it like on East Hastings there. Okay. Lots of activism taking place in the downtown east side as well in terms of helping people and dealing with different things. And we have an alley shot here, and this is very much the picture that most people have in their mind when it comes to the downtown east side. Okay, alleyways strewn with garbage, people destitute, things like that, not getting any help or anything that they need. So the Missing Women's Commission came out of the findings of Wally Opal when it came time to addressing the government needs and neglect that took place around the Picton trial. So as a result of all those different things, what people were trying to address was, as you see up here, hate crimes, physically being beaten, raped, or assaulted by dates, pimps, and drug dealers, being ignored, belittled, humiliated, sworn at, shunned by police, public for being a dirty hoe, crack whore, or slut, having items thrown at them from vehicles, very common. As well, one of the statements that Wally Opal had said as well, if you're not familiar with this, was that had it been someone from Shaughnessy or that area is there, this would not have gone on for as long as it did. I'm going to share this as well. There's a police who's on record for saying I wouldn't piss on her to save her life if she was on fire. Nice. Lots of neglect, lots of different things that were taking place around that time. And why? Why? Because of bias? Because of ignorance? Because it's plain old stupidity as far as I'm concerned. Overwhelmingly, sex workers agreed violence against us is a hate crime. This puts our violent experiences into a deeper context. Violence against our population is done with specific intent to cause harm, due our social identity, and compounded by our sheer accessibility. One of the things that I'm doing right now with all the National Working Group and the Community Alliance for Sex Work Reform is addressing all this anger. There's a lot of anger coming forward out there. And why? Why is it there? And why is it still being perpetuated that it's okay to commit violence against a sex worker or anybody related to the industry whatsoever? There is a lack of promotion of the idea that violence against anybody is unacceptable on any level, period, no matter what they're doing. And we have provisions for that in our Constitution, but it doesn't seem to be being applied to because based on the type of work somebody does. Does that make sense? I don't think so. And human rights for sex workers. We're going to just hold the perpetrators responsible. Why shouldn't they be charged? You know, they'd be charged with anything else. We are no longer willing to die quietly. We will stand up to those who promote sex industry hatred and hold accountable all who would harm us with complacency. And here we have more documentation being signed. Susie working hard at it again. and the West Coast Cooperative for Sex Industry Professionals. So if you have any questions, I want to point out as well that there's all kinds of different things here. I've got some business cards here for you. And for those of you who are having sex, as God forbid you should be having sex, I've got some samples of lube and a few other items here as well. And business cards for the store, because I want you all to come in there and ask me questions. Come and talk to me. Talk to me and hear more about what's going on there. And just so I can entice you to come into the store, we've agreed to give you all 15% off on your purchases at the stores. For those of you who missed out, the 25% off on the nights that I did have my little invitational evenings, which, well, it's too bad you missed out, right? So that's it for me for now.
I need a mic. I don't know anything that's shaped like this. Okay, so my name's Raymond Bowen, and I'm really happy to be here today. I'm so glad that Velvet was able to do some of the history. Some of the film or the photos there, we were signing for onto the West Coast Cooperative. Like, it was the first board of the cooperative. I was hiding in the corner. And some of the other photographs are from the History of Sex Work project that you guys can Google. The coalition did in partnership with Continuing Education out of SFU. So there's a little booklet that we have, but it's all available online if you're interested. Okay, so a little about me. Okay, so I've been involved in sex work, organizing and activism for a few years. I've worked for all 3 sex work organizations in town, the major organizations, 2 of which still exist. So Peers Vancouver, which was primarily an exiting organization, closed a few years back, but WISH is still in existence, as well as PACE. And let's see, and so most of my work has been systemic advocacy and also organizing community development and building capacity among sex workers to speak for themselves, to speak with their own voice instead of, in the past, sex workers have either been ignored or represented by other interest groups, and so people had their sort of rescue or savior mentality, but sex workers were rarely able to speak for themselves, and when they could, and when they do so at great risk because of stigma and other ways that their analysis is excluded. So I'm a co-founder of a few organizations in town, including the BC Coalition of Experiential Communities. That group came about because we wanted to engage with community-based research to influence policy. So out of the coalition, at the time there was a group called the Vancouver Agreement, where 3 levels of government came together and they were doing housing and anti-poverty work. And it's very rare that you get 3 levels of government in the same room, so we had a whole committee. And so the coalition was able to negotiate for funding for things like the Wish Drop-In Center, the Mobile Access Project, which is an outreach van that provides supply support and resource information for sex workers that work on street, and a number of other funding, Living in Community, which is another group of residents and community organizations and sex workers and business improvement associations. And so we were at the table all coming together, finding ways that the interests of sex workers can be included when we talk about neighborhood safety, health and safety, law enforcement, all of those things. Okay. And currently, I fell kind of backwards into a position here at UBC. And they didn't know what they were in for, but I'm here, and I'm in the School of Nursing, and I'm doing a research project right now called SPACES, and that's Sex, Power, Agency, Consent, Environment, and Safety. So I'm interviewing sex providers, managers, buyers, and support staff from the off-street sex industry. And we're looking at how the off-street industry is constructed, how IT and informatics play into the design of the off-street industry, and also how people are able to negotiate their health and safety given the new off-street industry world. So there's very, very little, can you guys hear me at the back? Yeah, okay. There's very little known about the off-street industry, so our approach, because I come from this community place, we are trying to co-create interventions with industry professionals to improve health and safety in their industry, and also to find ways to continue systemic advocacy where sex workers' voices are centralized. All right, so now I'm going to move on to a little bit of an ice-breaking game. I usually have candy. I got lost on the way here, sorry about that. But, I'll say the question and then somebody will hopefully respond. Okay, so it's a myth or fact game. I just pulled out a few questions. The game's a bit longer, but here we go. All right. Okay, myth or fact. 60% of the sex industry occurs off-street. Myth? Who said that? Myth. And what percentage do you think?
I think it's much lower.
Lower, like?
I think it's, I don't know, maybe it's like
10 or 15 off-street?
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys agree?
I thought that last on street. Oh.
Reading, it's challenging. So you're thinking 10 or 15%
on street, so that would make this true or higher too.
Yes, it would make this a myth. You're right. You're right. So you're right. Let's be right. Okay, so 5 to 15% are the estimates for on-street sex work, and the rest, 85%. Right? Because I know you guys, you're well read. The majority of the sex industry occurs off-street. We have no idea the total numbers. Nobody does. But it's just a rough estimate based on empirical studies, knowledge that people have who know something about something. Yeah, so that's that one. Good. Okay, next. Prostitution is legal in Canada. Myth or fact? Nobody knows right now. Yeah. It's a fact? Absolutely. Prostitution has always been legal in Canada, but there have been other pieces of legislation that made it illegal to be a sex worker or to do sex work. So I don't know how far back you guys go with the vagrancy legislation, but in 1985, there was a piece of legislation called the Communicating Act, Section 213, which made it illegal to communicate for the purposes of prostitution in a public place or a place visible to the public, but being a sex worker is not illegal. Right, I wish I had a treat. Okay. The average age of men who buy sex is, boy, that's supposed to be is, see? Illiterate, right? Is 42. What do you guys think?
Myth.
Myth. And what do you think the real age?
It's total guess.
Yeah.
Real age? I have no idea. Less.
Less?
Yeah.
Lots less?
Way
30.
30.
Off the top of my head.
And you?
late 20s.
Really? And you know, this is empirically true. This is based on a study done with Chris Atchison, a friend of all of ours. He did the original Men Who Buy Sex study where he surveyed over 1,000 buyers, and he's doing another study right now, John's Voice. You can Google that too. But in his study, from his sample, based on his methods and questions, 42 was the average age of men who buy sex. Okay, how about this one? 280 missing first women and girls in Canada. Myth. Who said that? Somebody said that. Yes, sorry.
More.
Sorry?
More.
How much more?
A lot more.
Take a guess.
I don't know. More.
More. Okay. Can anyone quantify that?
I think the figure's close to 400.
Close to 400? Do you guys agree?
More than
More than, oh, she's saying more. More than 400. Okay, what's your number?
More than 5.
More than 5. Okay. All right. Current estimates are there are over 800 missing Aboriginal women and girls across the country. So that's including Highway 16, Highway of Tears, people coming from reserve, off reserve. This is an exceptionally high number. If it was 800 of anybody else, or pretty much anything else, it would have a lot of media attention. But because we're distracted by, you know, Rob Ford, what's on right now? Amazing Race, and you know, we lose, I don't want to, but we lose some of the really pertinent information and why does this happen? Not that it happens and who it happens to, because it shouldn't matter, but it does. But if 800 Caucasian men between 50, or you know, 18 and 40 go missing, or 800 university students go missing, it'd be an issue, and there'd be Black Hawks helicopters, and there'd be investigators, and we'd be on, you know, I don't know, what's that investigative show, like we'll be on, you know, it would make global news, and it would be important, and it would be a priority, but because it's impossible